Hey everybody, my name is Joe Pace, and this is going to be an active recovery class. So we're going to work on holding some really stretching range of motion focused poses for a certain period of time. I actually have my stopwatch. We're going to hold them for specific amounts of time. But that's the recovery piece. The active piece is what allows us to get deeper into the poses, and not in such a way where we need to, stretch our muscles beyond the point where it's going to be productive, but it allows us to create enough heat so that the depth that we experience in our whatever part of our body that we're stretching is a little bit more productive and also something new to explore. So we're going to try to keep this as basic as possible, not use any kind of special props. If you do have blocks, that's going to be a great thing, but we don't necessarily need a block, really just something to support your weight underneath your hands. That's really what's going to be most important here. And before we get started, I really want to talk about breath today. So we'll use our breath as we go throughout this practice, and we'll actually breathe in a specific way. It's called Ujjayi breathing. It's just a fancy word for victorious breathing, and there's a specific technique to it. Essentially what it allows us to do is smooth out the length of our breathing pattern, and it happens by narrowing the base of the throat. So similar to a whisper or fogging up a mirror, that narrowing at the base of the throat allows us to streamline the breathing pattern and choose whether or not we want the inhales and exhales to be longer or shorter. So for the entirety of this practice, the goal will be to extend the inhales and exhales to really as long as you're comfortable with. And so we'll practice that right here. Just a few Ujjayi breaths together. And this breathing technique you can use throughout any yoga class you really ever do. So we'll take a deep inhale through the nose and then fog up a mirror out the mouth. You'll notice the exhale is a little longer. Inhale through the nose normally. Exhale out the mouth. Next exhale will be out the nose. Inhale through the nose normally. Exhale out the nose as if you were fogging up a mirror. Now try inhaling that same way. Exhale out the nose. Let's inhale for a count of 4. 3, 2, 1. And then from here, we'll take this breathing pattern into our practice. Okay, so that lengthening of the breath 4 to 1 is what we're going to try to do for this entire practice. So try your best. The limit isn't necessarily 4 breaths. You can take, or 4 seconds. You can take the length as long as you'd like. Okay, so the first pose we'll take is a standing forward fold with wide legs. So hands to the mat. And here's where blocks or whatever you're going to place your hands on will come in handy. So we'll take the feet parallel and in line with one another. And before even coming into our forward fold, you can stand up. The goal we want to focus on here is zipping into the midline. So we're going to press the feet in towards one another. You'll feel the inseams of the legs turn on. So these adductor muscles, the insides of the legs, you'll feel those turn on. You're going to grip the mat with your toes and press down into the mat, into the soles of your feet from your hips. So it's almost like your legs are scissoring into the mat. Then you take your hands either to the floor or blocks or anything to place your hands on. Now from this place, find a place of steadiness. So now you're going to immediately notice a stretch in the hamstrings. All right, from this place, try to engage your quads so your kneecaps will lift, your tailbone will lift towards the ceiling. You root down, press down through your heels. All right, so you should feel nothing in the low back, nothing in the neck. You can even let your neck hang here or just look straight down at the floor. Pressing firmly into the blocks. Lift up and away from the floor through your chest. So don't worry so much about folding forward. Think about just finding your deep breathing in this pose. Find a pose, find the place where your hamstrings feel a productive stretch, and then make the pose completely static. Don't move at all. So lengthen your breaths and count your inhales and exhales. We started the timer here. So steady as possible. There's no motion at all. Notice what's going on in your hamstrings. Notice what's going on in your back. Draw the shoulder blades down the back, so slide the shoulders away from the ears. Crown of your head draws forward and away from your tailbone. Continuing to count your breaths. Press down into the mat from your hips, so the inseams of the legs turn on. You're rooting down through all four corners of your feet. Continue to breathe. Last couple seconds here. Really nice. To come out, hands, place them to your hips, lift up and through your chest, and take note of how many breaths you took. So that was a minute hold in that forward fold. We'll continue to try to lengthen out our breathing pattern, which will shorten the number of breaths we take per pose. All right. We'll actually take just a mini quick little warm-up here. So that's our first little introductory warm-up pose. We will take downward facing dog to start, or not to start, as our second pose. And so in this pose, we're actually going to take it as a static held pose, and we'll use this as our warm-up as well, pretty much for our whole body. It's a really complete pose. So our hands are shoulders width position, and you can have your knees bent to any degree. We're going to open the hamstrings today, but right now, they're probably not as open as they're going to be. So from this position, you're reaching through both shoulders. So it's almost like you're shrugging your shoulders towards your ears. You'll feel both sides of your body get long. Spread every finger as wide as you can, except for the thumb. The thumb is somewhere between closed off and fully open. Somewhere in between is good. Make sure you're pressing down through the index finger knuckle, the base of the index finger. So every corner of your palm is pressing firmly into the mat. Lift your tailbone, straighten your knees to any degree as you're lifting tailbone high, heels drawing towards the mat. So now we're in a very strong downward facing dog. Again, knees bent to any degree if there's any pressure in the low back. You can let your chest dip towards the mat if that feels accessible for you. If this feels tight and uncomfortable and there's a rounding in your back, make a longer stance. So your hands walk away from your feet and vice versa. So it's a little bit longer. Honestly, a little bit more active, but also no pressure on the back in that position. So you can walk your feet away from your hands. Continue to find that perfect pose, and then when you do, lock it in, do not move, and we'll be here for about a minute. So you'll notice really quickly that it's pretty active. A lot of a big ask on the arms and the shoulders. So you can always bring your knees to the mat. Don't be shy. Just bring your knees to the mat. Keep the arms as they are. If you're with it, you can close your eyes. Find the steadiness and even weight distribution between your feet and hands. Breathing pattern continuing to deepen, taking as few breaths as possible while keeping yourself oxygenated. You don't want to get lightheaded. Make sure you're getting enough oxygen as you breathe. So we're here, we're just letting the pose do its work. We often kind of fly in and out of poses, especially in a flow yoga class, but letting this downward facing dog be a restorative pose is more about just finding the pose that works and letting it do its job. Backs of legs opening. If you want to take it a step further, you can rotate even energetically without even the legs moving per se, rotating the legs in towards one another. So the upper thighs spinning internally. Slowly lower to the knees, shoulders over wrists. Okay, so we're coming out of that downward facing dog. Take note of your breath. That was about a minute 20. Okay, so from this position, we're going to take some cat-cows, warm up the spine, and we're going to hold them. We're only going to take one cow pose and one cat pose. So knees directly underneath hips, hands directly underneath shoulders. From this place, exact same hand placement as downward facing dog. We grip the mat with our fingertips, spin the biceps forward, lift tailbone, lift chest. Okay, so we're lifting the chest through the arms, pressing down, extending through both elbows, and you're gripping the mat with your fingertips. Notice the opening and the strengthening of the back. Okay, so we're building strength in the back while also really opening up the front of the spine to create a little bit more opening, a little bit more space. Lifting chest through the arms, Deepen your breath. Feel your belly descend on your inhales and contract on your exhales. Inhale, belly button draws away from your spine. Exhale, belly button draws towards the spine. Couple more breaths. Continue to extend through both elbows. Spread the shoulder blades wide and down the back as you lift the chest through the arms. Last breath here. From here, simple maneuver, come back to neutral spine. So our chest is neutral with our hips. What we want to do now is keep the hands and knees as they are, but press the mat away, shoulder blades spread apart from one another, our back domes. We create space, and so our tailbone's ducking towards the mat as our shoulder blades spread. Gaze can be down. You're breathing into your upper back. So on every inhale, feel your shoulder blades spreading. Every exhale, keep them to that maximum spreading position. Don't move, keep the pose static. Tailbone continually ducking, pressing through both elbows, biceps spinning forward. Okay, from here, come back to a neutral spine, always slowing down the breath. And from here, we'll take low lunge. Right foot forward, left knee down. So we start with right knee right over our right ankle and the left knee right under our left hip. So we have these squared off knees. You can always walk the left knee back, place the hands down, left knee back. But the key in this pose is that we have no pressure in the lower back. So find a place where you feel like you have no pressure in the low back. I'm going to stay in this entry-level position. Left knee right under left hip. From here, options with the hands. You can have the hands at the waist or hips. Okay, so breathing here, finding a stretch in the front left psoas, the front hip. And then from this place, we can take the arms overhead. Gaze can be up. You can interlace the fingers. Reach up with the fingers. So now your biceps are outside your ears and you're reaching tall through both sides of the body. If it feels accessible, you can dip and drop the hips forward slightly. Feel the stretch come into the front left hip. Another option, interlace your thumbs like this so one thumb locks into the other. You lift up through the arms while bending the elbows, and then the elbows draw straight back. So an opening for the front shoulder, armpit. Definitely a chest opener as well. So a lot going on in this pose, and you're probably getting a sense of why it's active while also being recovery. We're spending time in parts of the body that don't get this much time spent in them. All right, so continue to breathe deep. Limit the number of breaths. Stay focused in the moment by breathing deep. Continuing to, if you have the thumbs like this, continuing to pull the thumbs apart from one another, drawing the elbows back. Release that. Hands to the mat. We'll switch sides. Right foot back, left foot forward. And again, setting up with the right knee underneath the right hip. If you feel a little bit more open in the side, you don't have to take the same exact variation. Maybe this knee can come back a little bit more. We feel the freedom in this front hip on this side. Our sides do tend to be different, so customize as you feel comfortable. Make sure you're feeling a good stretch in the front right hip, whatever you're doing, okay? Options with the hands, hips, overhead, interlace thumbs. Maybe take the opposite thumb on top. Reach up and back through the elbows. Sink the hips comfortably forward. So you don't want to come to a maximum place. Keep the hip points, the front of your hips, lifting as you continue to draw the hips forward. Create the stretch that works best for you. And if you're still with me on the breathing, continue to slow down the breathing pattern, lengthening and filling completely. So your inhales fill the lungs to the top. Your exhales empty the lungs completely. Play with that. Last few breaths here. Gently release, hands to mat. From this place, we'll make it to a tall standing position. So feet can come hips width distance. You can bring a bend into the knees. All right, so now I'm facing you. We're gonna take a simple forward fold, but we're not gonna fold all the way over. Taking the knees bent, you lift your hips up. So same exact idea as what we had in our wide-legged forward fold. This time the legs are directly underneath our hips, feet planted directly underneath our hips. Our hands come to our upper thighs. Find a back bend. So you're lifting your chest up and forward. You'll feel the strengthening happening in your back. Draw your elbows towards one another as you lift up and forward with your chest. Press down through your heels. Any bend in the knees is okay. A little bend is great, especially if you're feeling it in the low back. You can come past halfway. You don't have to be fully folded over. So this past halfway position, lifting up through the chest, spinning legs in towards one another, breathing deep. All corners of the feet engaged and pressing into the mat, taking it forward to whatever degree feels positive for your body. You'll notice a lot of the support for this pose is in the strength of the back. So you don't want to curl in and let everything fall forward. Engage your back to stay sturdy, steady, and breathing deep. For 2. 1, gently bending knees. Let the chest and torso rest on the upper thighs. Hands hang heavy to the ground. Again, knees bent to any degree to let the hands touch the ground. Okay? From this place, we're going to keep the hands on the ground. Knees will stay bent. All right? Now we're going to explore a little bit of a kind of an interesting hamstring stretch. So from here, with our torso resting against the legs, keep the body pressing against your quads. So my chest is really pressing against right above my knees. Keep it there, keeping the body pressing against the legs. Lift the hips higher. So keep the body pressing, all right? And even if the hips don't go higher, the action of lifting the hips will create a nice hamstring stretch, a protected hamstring stretch. With our body against our legs, there's only so far we can go. We find the point that feels positive and we hang out in it. We'll be here for about a minute. So count your breaths, keep them as deep as you can. Your belly is going to be expanding against your legs. So just notice you may not be able to fill up as much, but keep the breaths deep, keep them full. You can grab the heels if you'd like, continuing to lift hips. Knees will most likely not be straight here, so that's okay. Okay, and if you're doing this in a group of people, with a group of people, everybody's going to look different, and that's absolutely okay. We're not worried about comparison in this pose. We're worried about getting a hamstring stretch for ourselves. That's all that matters. For 3, 2, 1. Hands come back to the mat. Bend your knees. From here, take both knees to the mats. All right, and then what we'll do is tuck the toes under and then start without sitting on the heels. So fully sitting on the heels is probably going to feel pretty intense for a lot of people. Let's first start with just tucking the toes under, spreading all of your toes wide. So the bottom of every one of your toes and the pads of each of your toes are pressing into the mat with your heels lifted off. From here, you can sit your hips back towards your heels. If it starts to feel intense, just play with it. Find a place where it feels productive. It may feel a little bit painful. We don't want to push through pain. Back off to a place where it feels productive. You can move all the way to a place of sitting on your heels, okay? Sitting on the heels is going to put a lot of pressure into the toes. This is a really good prevention pose for plantar fasciitis. Really good stretch for the toes in general, which really don't get this treatment very often. Okay, wherever you are, stay lifting through the chest. We're only going to be here for another 20 seconds or so. And if you're feeling this intensity, can you breathe through it? Can you slow down your breath? Can you configure the pose so that it's not about competition. You're not competing with yourself. You're not pushing through. You're finding a place that feels productive. This is about recovery, so we're not worried about performance here. Cool. From here, place the hands back onto the mat. Okay, uncurl the toes. You can tuck the toes or really take the toes in the other direction by squeezing them in, get the counter stretch. All right, from this place, we're gonna take left hand to the mat, all right, and then take the right foot forward. So now, similar to our low lunge, except we have the left hand in line with the right foot, left knee roughly underneath left hip. Okay, so a few options here. We're gonna take a supported twist, and then we'll take that into a quad stretch. So the right hand is right on top of the right knee. Our left shoulder is extending, so we're not crunching into the left shoulder and falling down into it. Press away through the left shoulder so you're long from shoulder to neck. There's a lot of length there. Spread your left fingertips wide, and then come up off the left knee. Okay, from this place, you can always come back to the left knee, but try to feel this out. Feel the stability of the pose. When you feel stable, you can press a little bit more weight into your right hand, which is on top of your right knee. Twist it open. So it should be a nice upper body stretch. Left knee, always an option to stay on the ground underneath your left hip. Breathe deep. You can be twisting open to the right while looking towards the floor. So keep that in mind. If it's a lot of pressure on your neck, don't worry about looking towards the ceiling. You can always look down. Keep length between your shoulder and your ear. Very nice. We'll just hold that for just a moment here. Lower left knee if you were lifted. From this place, turn your toes of your right foot out 45 degrees. So they're facing out and to the right. From this place, come onto the outside edge of your right foot. Press gently into the right inside edge of the right leg. So getting a nice hip opener here. Press away gently. This is nothing crazy. It may feel really tight. So moderate. Don't worry so much about how deep you go. If this feels pretty good, if this feels pretty accessible for you, stay here, or you can bend your left knee, reach back with your right hand, continue to press away energetically through the right leg, grab the left foot, and then gently pull the left heel into the body. So you'll feel this quad stretch if you dip your hips forward and continue to keep the equal pressure on your pull of your back leg. You'll notice the pretty big opening in the front hip, the quad, while also getting a pretty efficient stretch in the right hip. For 3. Slowing down the breath. 2. 1, if you have the back leg, release it. Take the hand back to the inside edge of the right leg. Get 1 extra moderate press away. Bring the knee back in towards center, toes face forward. Let's take the other side. So we'll just switch legs however you'd like. All right, so our feet are hips width distance. Now from, our legs are as wide as our hips. To put it another way, place the right hand in line with your left toes, or left foot, fingertips in line with the toes. So from here, we take the left hand to the left knee, reach the right knee up off the mat if that feels okay for your body. Press away with the left hand to twist deep into this nice lunging twist. Right hand firmly rooted into the mat, pressing through the inner edge of the right hand. Right bicep squaring forward on the mat. Press away through your right shoulder. Create length from your shoulder to your ear. Gaze can be up or down or out to the side, wherever you want it. By looking up, we add the extra twist in the neck. Doesn't add any extra twist in the back, so just be conscious of that. We're worried mostly about the back here, getting a nice twist. For 3. 2. 1. From here, drop your right knee if you had it lifted. You can scoot it in if you'd like. Okay, turn the left toes out towards the left at a 45-degree angle. All right, from this place, we come to the outside edge of the left foot. Press the left knee away gently. Setting up your pose, flexing left toes towards your left knee. This will protect your left knee. Hips dropping forward to whatever degree feels productive. If you feel steady here, if you feel like this isn't too much for you, you can add on bending right knee, grab the right foot with the left hand, lift up with the chest, so it's a little bit of a back bend Reach away through the right shoulder, and then gently hug your right heel in towards your right butt cheek. Steady stream of breath. Let the pose do the work. Once you've found it, get completely static. Gently release right leg. Left hand coming to the inside edge of the left leg. Left hand releases right leg. Press left hand into left leg. Gently. Coming back to center. Coming back to our tabletop. Last little bit here. One cow pose. Inhale, lift through the chest, lift through the tailbone. Exhale, press the mat away. This is cat pose. Inhale, back to neutral. We'll take it back to child's pose. So knees come wide onto the mat, so almost to the outside edges. Sit back on the heels, hands out, extended in front of us. So nice and long. Let the heels the hips come closer to the heels. And then just feel long in both sides of your body. Place your forehead against the mat. In this place, focus on nothing but your breath, slowing it down as much as you can. Gently walk the hands back in towards you. Come to a comfortable seat. Any seated position will work. Okay. So that was a pretty active class. Got a lot in. So it's pretty, wouldn't call it complete, but we did a lot of things today that should feel pretty good. Hopefully this helps you stay active in whatever you do. The goal is to just stay balanced ultimately. So we don't want to be so flexible, and we also don't want to be so strong. We want to be strong enough and flexible enough so that we can stay healthy and stay active in everything that we want to do with our bodies. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate working with you. Namaste, everybody.